everybody, it's Emily from the channel Mindfully Trading, and today I'm going to share with you my recap for today. For today's trades, I've done 3 trades today. I've had 2 losers, I've had 1 winner, and I'm up a whopping 49 pence. So it's not that exciting really, is it, 49 pence, but I'm actually really happy because I'm green. After having 2 losers, I managed to utilise my positive profit and loss ratio, and on my winner I made it bigger than my losers, and therefore it just got me back up on the day. It wasn't actually what I was kind of desperate to do, but obviously I'm glad I've done it. I'm glad I'm break even on the day, a little bit over, but I think 49 pence is pretty much break even, isn't it? But trading is really difficult. You know, as a beginner, trading Forex with a small account, it is really difficult. I feel like I take a few steps forward and I take a few steps backwards, and you know, I'm working so hard and spending hours on the screens, and when you have days like this where you just break even, you know, for me anyway, I'm like, what's the point in this? But I feel like it's just good to be break even, really. I mean, it's better than being red, it's better than blowing up an account for sure. And I think it's just part of the process. It's certainly part of the learning process, is being able to sustain your account. You know, I'm sort of, it would be nice to make money, but I guess it's not really about making money right now. It's about not losing it, and that's what I've done today, and that's what I'm going to share with you today. So I'll jump on the screen in a moment, show you the trades, show you the breakdown, show you what happened, and hopefully you can enjoy the video. So drop me a thumbs up if you like it, and let's crack on the screen right now. Hey everybody, so we're into my broker account in MetaTrader 4, and I go into my account history, and as you can see, I've done 3 trades today. I started, I don't think these times are quite right because I actually took those at 7 o'clock this morning, and then the bottom one was actually at 9 o'clock, so I need to change that in settings somewhere. I'll figure that out soon. But 3 trades, 2 losers hit my stop, 1 winner, didn't hit my profit target, but I did cut it, still within a good target. I'll go into that in a moment. 48 pence on the day, but I was down just under £7 on the day, or in percentage terms 2%, so I've managed to make that back up, and I am pretty much break even. But yesterday I had a red day, unfortunately. Last week was a nice green week. Yesterday was a red day, and then today was appearing to be a red day, so I'm very happy I've managed to turn that around, focusing more on, you know, risk management, account survival, getting back on top, and that's what I've done today. So I guess I should be happy, really. Certainly feels like it's been quite choppy today. What I think's happening as I'm kind of learning, the more I'm doing this, is why it's great for me. I find it's great when you go live to use a really small risk, especially with a small account, because there's certain things that you can only really learn when you're live, when you have the emotions involved, and over a period of time for sure. Because I've had phases where it's been really good, like last week I had a great green week, and then suddenly, because I've had a green week, I'm like, yes, I'm green, it's good, I'm going to make lots of money now. But then, you know, the next week's never really the same. This is the shifts in the market, and that's what I've experienced today, because I feel like, looking at the charts, that it's kind of that tipping point where trends are maybe kind of shifting, but they're not quite obvious yet, and I'm trying to get in, but it's a little bit tricky because it's quite unpredictable, and that's how I found it today. And also the time periods as well, because I tend to trade the London breakout at 7 in the morning, but obviously Forex markets open 24 hours a day, 5 days a week, and not all the volume and necessarily the kind of the strategy that I trade anyway doesn't always break out when I come into the market. So sometimes it does, which happened last week, and it works great. Other times it doesn't, and I'm learning to feel that for myself, because like today I got into a trade at 7, but the trade wasn't really ready. I needed to wait. And looking at the charts now, it feels like there's a lot more breakouts happening from the American New York Open at 1 o'clock for me here in the UK. So it's kind of just recognizing that, I think, and recognizing when's the time to trade, when's the time to wait. You know, maybe I need to start waiting if it's quite quiet, and wait for the New York Open and to see if that's when things move. And just really get in touch with the market, and that's what I'm learning at the moment, and meanwhile focusing on building that profit loss ratio, which has really helped me out today. So enough talking, let's just show you the trades. So this morning on the watch list, I was looking, and I don't really know why now, but I was looking at the Australian dollar to the US dollar. So I'll make this chart a little bit bigger. So just on the weekly chart here, when I was looking this morning, since then it's actually been quite a green day. But when I looked this morning, we were underneath this red candle from the previous week, and I thought that we were going to carry on coming down. So then going back on the daily, it's weird. It feels like sometimes I recognize these patterns, and then sometimes it's after I get into a trade that I kind of look at things and notice things a bit more. So looking at this now, I can see that it's making this kind of M pattern almost. I feel like it's going to try to retest this horizontal ray and then fade, because it feels like, looking at the weekly, that it does need to fade down. And I didn't actually look at the monthly for this, but going into the monthly, you can see that we are in this overall downtrend, but we've just had this kind of short-term uptrend, and I basically went in to short this to go with the overall long-term trend. But I think we need a little bit more pullback on the daily and the sort of shorter term trends before it's ready to actually drop. So I basically got into this a bit too early. But we break down onto the 4-hourly chart, and you can see that I've got the horizontal ray line here, and these are the trend lines that we saw on the larger time frames, on the monthly and the weekly. And we've kind of consolidated over here. We broke through this daily trend line, which is that uptrend. And I'll move these out of the way so that I can get to this morning, the 23rd. Okay, so this is what I was looking at this morning on the hourly chart on this. And with this big consolidation, this is the daily trend line. But then this red candle here, if you can see that one, that's the one that closed at 7 o'clock, and that was the one that I actually got in on because it closed below this daily trend line. So I felt that it was a good time to go short. I kind of instinctively knew it needed to pull back more, and I told myself, wait, don't just jump into this, wait for it to pop up. And it popped up a few pips, then it dropped, and then I got in. And I knew as soon as I got in that I didn't wait long enough, and I kind of had that FOMO reaction that I'm trying to not jump into. But I had that a bit on this trade, and unfortunately it didn't work. It literally stayed at my entry, and then it went up here, and as you can see, it hit my stop. So this was one of the losing trades. Unnecessary, you know, not the best. I jump in and it's still in consolidation. It's emotional trades, they happen. I'm finding it challenging to kind of keep on top of that form all the time consistently, and that's part of becoming a consistent trader. And I'm really glad I've lowered my risk, because it really helps to take that fearful aspect out of the equation. But I'm still having that fear of missing out occasionally, and that's what I'm dealing with. And that's what I feel like I experienced on this trade, the Australian dollar to the US dollar. So I'll just break it down a little bit more, 15-minute. And it was this point here where it closed underneath, and I got short, but it just basically went straight up. So as I said, that was a losing trade. So I lost 1% on that trade because I was risking 1, which worked out to be about minus £3.65. And I noticed that these are not exact figures really, because I'm really trying to gauge my lot size using the lot size calculator from my FX book. But my broker doesn't have nano size, it has micro size lots. So for example, with Australian dollar to the US dollar, I think that my risk would have worked out at 0.014, but I couldn't have that extra digit. So I just rounded it down to 0.01. Whereas the trade I took later on the pound to the dollar, based on my stop, was 0.18, something like that. So I round it up to 2. So that's not an exact science, but I'm trying to keep it consistent. I'm trying to keep my position sizes relevant to my account size and my risk, risking 1% per trade. But if you notice, things don't quite seem to add up precisely. That's probably what it is. So that was that one anyway. Let's jump on to the pound to the dollar, and I'll just drag that across from my other screen and make this one a little bit bigger. And again, we'll just to give an overview, jump on the weekly for this. So again, we're in this sort of downtrend overall on the weekly for the pound dollar, and sort of quickly jumping through the time frames here. So we've kind of tested these horizontal rays, we've jumped down. This trend line here has been a daily uptrend, but I'm waiting for it to break below that, which I thought is what it was doing today. And just jumping into the 4-hourly here, make that a little bit bigger. Now I actually took 2 trades on this one. The first trade, which was at just after 7 o'clock, 7:07, and it was a very low position. It wasn't the best entry. I wasn't obviously on my form this morning when I started trading, but basically we've got this kind of short-term trend line here on the 1 hour chart. Now, I don't usually use indicators, but I have added the 50 here. I'm going to just remove it for now, but I'll put it back on and talk about that in a moment. On this trade, I had this trend line at the time of the trade. It was more like here. As this red candle started to cross that, I was looking at it to go short. And again, I had that feeling that I was quite extended off this daily trend line, which is this one just here. I'll just make it a bit bigger to try and make it clearly, and just move this out the way for a moment. But this big blue line here is the daily trend line, and generally it had kind of broken over here and rejected it, so that's why I was looking to go short. And it was this red candle here as it closed that I felt I would go short on, and I actually got in down here. And in hindsight, it wasn't the best position because it was quite extended, and the risk that I was using meant my stop was not over the daily trend line, which isn't really the best because quite often it will try and retest that as it has done here. So needless to say, I got stopped out of this. And again, it's similar to the Australian dollar to the US dollar. I kind of felt like it was going to make this M pattern and maybe retest this trend line before fading down. So I think, again, I was just a bit too quick to get into this trade. I'm really trying to practice patience, or at least I'm learning that's what I need to work more on, is being patient before I get into these entries. After that, I'd had 2 losers by 7:30, and I decided I'd do some exercise, get away from the computer for a bit, you know, calm the emotions down, which is what I did. And then when I came back to the computer, we basically had this movement here. So we'd obviously stopped me out previously, and then we've gone up and gone over this daily trend line, but then we've come back down and made this sort of bearish rejecting candle. So then I drew on this trend line here, and if I jump into the 15-minute as well, so as I saw the price action rejecting this trend line, coming back down, this 15-minute candle that closed at 9:30, I actually got short below that because I still trusted my original plan to go short. I just felt like I got in at the wrong time. I got in too low down, and I just felt a little bit more focused after I cleared my head for a few hours. So I got in here, and this was actually a really nice trade because I wasn't in the red at all on this. It just faded down nicely because I had a really good entry at the top of the move. And it kind of came down here. I'll bring this back across so you can see. I got it in around about 90. 1, 2, 4, 98. I don't usually count the last pip though because it's fractional. But as you can see anyway, it came down really nicely. And I kind of marked on the chart this this is a resistance line, but it also worked out at my 1.5 target. But I was aiming for a 2 target. How's my writing? A 2 to 1, so risking 1% to make 2%. And as we came down here, I was watching this resistance point at the 41 level, and we were sort of testing that, and then it managed to break it about 12 o'clock, and it came down to about 32, which was a couple of pips away from my 30 target, but then it retracted again, and then it came back over this what was a resistance level that I'd plotted on here, which I think actually coincided with the 50 moving average on the hourly chart. So it's just to be aware indicators for tools like this, just to kind of confirm the general trend. But as it was retracting back to that point and giving some resistance, I decided to get out early on this one. So instead of getting my 2% target, I actually got out at 1.5. So I made 1.5% on this trade. But I did end up taking a little bit more lot size on this, just the way that it worked, because it was a smaller stop with my risk, which is why I actually ended up being green on the day of roll, which worked out quite well. And it turned out it was the right thing to do, because since then it's bounced back up, which I think just goes to show that it is quite a choppy day today. And after this, I decided that was it. I was just going to call it a day, because it's, you know, it's choppy. There's no point battling at it. I just felt good that I'd made back what I'd lost. I wasn't kind of determined to do that, but I was very grateful that I managed to do that, and that was the sign for me to call it a day, to keep my account and walk away. And just a couple of others that I had on watch this morning as well. I was looking at the pound yen, and I sort of plotted out this target this morning, but it seems to have had a lot of these patterns today where we've had the drop below a daily trend line and kind of this consolidation around it. And I think from the lessons I've had today, it just feels like it's better to just kind of see what happens, let the trend decide itself, and then get on and follow the trend. That's the way I generally work. But today I've tried to trade when things have been consolidating. It's been difficult. So always lessons of trading. There's always something else to learn every day. You sit down to the computer, and as a beginner, that's why I'm enjoying having low risk, because I'm not really in it to make money at the moment. I'm in it to make progress in terms of education. I'm learning, and I'm trying to make that education as cheap as possible by not blowing up my account. And that's what I've done today, so it's a good day for that. I did miss a nice trade though, which was a bit unfortunate, on the pound to the Australian dollar. I was watching this on the daily chart. I'll just zoom out to show you. I'll zoom way out. We've been in this kind of uptrend here between these two channels, and we've had this big downtrend come in on the daily, and I was basically watching it for a double tap and a bounce back up. So we've come down here, we've come up here, and I thought it was going to form like a W pattern using the daily trend line as support to bounce back up. So I was actually looking at this for more of a swing style trade to the long side, but it has actually broken underneath this trend line, and now that's the daily. So if I just break down through the time frames into the hourly, I was watching to see what happened more than anything. So I plotted this trend line on the hourly of it consolidating underneath the overall daily trend line, but it seems to have broken that, which looks like it would have been quite a nice trade, but I didn't catch that. But when I actually looked at it a bit closely on the 15-minute, it didn't actually seem to retest it. I mean, we've got this here, but it closes above the trend line, so I wouldn't count that as a retest. It's a retest and fail, and then it's broke through again. I usually like to see a retest where the wick touches the trend line and rejects it and closes on the side that I want to go into, but it didn't do that. So even if I'd have caught it, I maybe wouldn't have actually got into that. Even on the 5-minute, there wasn't really any retest here. So the price action closes above, and then it closes below, but there's no retest, tap and drop. So it was quite a definitive drop down once we actually broke this trend line. So if anyone's taking advantage of that move, let me know in the comments below. So just before we finish off, I'll just share with you my kind of quick recap. I haven't done one last week, so just to share where I'm at with my account. Small account, risking very, very little. So it's not really about account growth at the moment. I think it's more about personal growth, education. But as you can see, I'm currently down £1.33, which isn't even 1% of my account, so it's pretty negligible at the moment. This Tuesday here at the beginning of June was before I reduced the risk on my account, so compared with that, I've actually done really well, because this day I actually had one losing trade, which was 3%, but since then a losing trade for me has been 1%. So if I'd have started that right at the beginning of June, I probably would have looked a lot better on my account, but it's okay. I'm working with what I've got here. But I've been doing pretty well. I had that one loser, I've had 2 green weeks, and then so far this week, I said I had my red day yesterday, and then I've had my whopping 50p winner today. So I'm just going to see how it goes this week and try to work on my patience. Maybe try and get up a bit earlier just to do a little bit of pre-trading meditation. I think that'll probably really help for where I'm at the moment with my trading goals. And just see if I can maybe bring this up to try to finish. Right, Nosy? Just see if I can maybe bring this up, this figure, so that I can try and finish it like break even, or maybe even green on the month. That'd be really nice. But it's good, so I'm really enjoying it anyway. I think I'm doing well to just maintain this developmental stage. So I hope you've enjoyed this quick daily recap. Let me know any questions or comments below, and if you have enjoyed it, be sure to drop me that like, so I'll know to continue making them to share with you guys. So I'll catch you on the next video. Thank you. Bye.